Adam Walsh, your mother is waiting for you. Please report to the toy department. The announcement plays again and again. Every 15 minutes, no boy comes running. No small feet hit the tile floor. Somewhere in that store, a mother's heart is starting to break. It's July 27th, 1981, a Monday. Hollywood, Florida. Heat rises off the parking lot outside. Inside, the air conditioning hums over racks of summer clothes. A 6-year-old boy had been standing with a crowd of kids just minutes ago. Now, he is gone. Not lost, not hiding. Gone. What happened next exposed a hole in America's safety net. A child could vanish in broad daylight inside a public store, 50 feet from his own mother. What happened in the years after rewrote the laws of an entire country. This is the story of Adam Walsh. This is the story of how one family's worst nightmare saved millions of children. Stay with us. This one is hard, but it matters. Kindly tell us in the comments section where you are watching from as we proceed. Let's go back. Before the nightmare, before the headlines. Adam Walsh lived an ordinary life in Hollywood, Florida. He was 6 years old, sandy blonde hair, hazel eyes, a face full of freckles. His family had a nickname for him. He loved baseball. He loved drawing pictures for his parents. He loved watching cartoons every single morning. His father, John Walsh, was a rising star at work. He managed a huge hotel project, sharp suits, big plans, a man who believed hard work solved everything. His mother, Reve, was studying design part-time. She was also a competitive bodybuilder, disciplined, driven, the kind of woman who planned her week down to the hour. They had a beautiful home, a growing career, and one son they adored more than anything. John once said something simple about his boy. If you could choose your perfect son from a catalog, this would be him. On the morning of July 27th, nothing felt unusual. Adam watched cartoons. John kissed his son goodbye and left for work. Reve had errands to run. She needed to register Adam for 2nd grade and one more stop. A store called Sears at the local mall. She'd been waiting months for a lamp to go on sale. Today was finally the day. She had no idea this errand would become the last normal afternoon of her life. Reve and Adam walked into the store together. They came in through their usual entrance. It was a habit. She always parked in the same spot. And that's when Adam saw it. A brand new video game system, a glowing screen in the toy section, 2 controllers. A crowd of boys took turns playing. In 1981, this felt like magic. Home video games were still rare and exciting. Kids gathered around it like it was treasure. Adam begged to stay and watch. Reve looked around the store. It was noon. The place was full of shoppers and staff. Security guards walked the floor. Through the front windows, she could see the police station. It felt like one of the safest places in the world. "I'm going to look at lamps," she told him. "It's just a few aisles away." "Okay, Mommy," Adam said. "I know where that is." She walked off, close enough to glance back and see the top of his head. 10 minutes, maybe 15. That was the plan. But the lamp wasn't on the shelf. She asked a worker to check the back room. It was out of stock. She left her name and turned back toward the toy section. The boys were gone. All of them. The video game sat there, screen still glowing. Her son was nowhere. Reve's voice rose. She called Adam's name through the aisles. Nothing. She rushed to the front desk. An announcement began over the speakers. "Adam Walsh, your mother is waiting for you." By chance, Adam's grandmother was shopping in the same store. The 2 women found each other. They began searching together with store workers. Every 15 minutes, the announcement repeated. Every 15 minutes, there was no answer. Here is what Reve did not know. Here is what the store would not tell her for 27 years. Around the time she walked off to find that lamp, a fight broke out. 2 boys argued with 2 other boys. They were fighting over whose turn it was to play. A teenage security guard was called over. She was only 17. She worked part-time. She had almost no training for a moment like this. She split the boys into 2 pairs. She asked the first pair if their parents were nearby. They said no. She sent them out through the front doors. Then she turned to the second pair. The older boy said his parents weren't there either. The younger boy said nothing. He just stood there, shy, maybe scared, maybe thinking he was in trouble. That boy wore green shorts and a striped shirt. The guard told both boys to leave, but not through the doors Reve had used. She sent them out a different exit, a part of the parking lot that boy had never seen. When workers were asked where Adam might be, they just shrugged. "He's around somewhere," they said. "You'll find him." He wasn't around. He was already outside. It took almost 2 hours for police to even be called, 2 hours after Adam was last seen. When officers finally showed up, they didn't take it seriously. A newspaper the next day printed a quote from a police worker. They said kidnapping wasn't suspected. They said the boy was probably trying to find his own way home. Lost, as if a 6-year-old could find his way home alone. When John Walsh raced to the mall, he couldn't believe what he saw. There was no real search happening, no urgency at all. He demanded a full search team. He demanded detectives. An officer told him to calm down. He said most kids just walk home by themselves. John's son had never walked anywhere alone in his life. They lived 5 miles away. He pushed, he pleaded. Eventually, he got attention, but the most important hours were already gone. John and a close friend set up camp inside the police station. They stayed there for 2 weeks straight. They even rigged their own phone line, just in case a ransom call came through. Reve sat awake through that first night. She kept picturing her son's bare feet, his yellow sandals, how cold he might be in just a t-shirt. The family covered their car with handwritten signs. They printed 500,000 flyers with Adam's photo. John went on television. His voice broke as he spoke. "We're not looking for revenge," he said. "Just drop him off somewhere. We'll forget the whole thing." A reward grew from $5,000 to $10,000 to $100,000. It eventually reached $120,000. That's worth well over $350,000 today. Helicopters circled overhead, volunteers searched through fields, truck drivers scanned the highways and talked to each other on their radios. But here is the brutal truth. In 1981, there was no emergency alert system for missing kids. There was no national list connecting different cities and states. The FBI couldn't even get involved unless there was a ransom note or proof the child had crossed a state line. A 6-year-old boy could vanish from a crowded store in daylight, and the most powerful police agency in the world could do almost nothing. By day 7, the news coverage was already fading. Other stories took over the headlines. Then John Walsh learned something that nearly broke him. He called a local office, desperate for any news about unidentified remains. They told him they only shared that kind of information every 6 months by mail. John asked if his son's case was in the national system. The worker on the phone had never heard of it. There was no national list of missing kids. There was no national list of unidentified bodies. Nothing connected one city to the next. John said it straight to the man's face. He said, "I have to call every office myself just to find my son." The worker had no good answer. It was simply up to John. John tried to get the big television networks to help spread the word. All of them said no. They said if they helped one family, they'd have to help everyone. Finally, a national morning show agreed to have them on. John and Reve were booked to plead for Adam on live television. The date was set for August 11th, 2 weeks after he vanished. They had no idea what the day before that broadcast would bring. On August 10th, 2 fishermen were casting lines along a quiet canal. It was more than 100 miles north of home. Evening light, still water. They saw something pale floating near the surface. At first, they thought it was a doll's head. It wasn't a doll. They called the police right away. Divers searched the canal for days. They never found the rest of the body. The next morning, John and Reve sat under studio lights. They begged strangers on live television to bring their son home. Back in Florida, investigators were already confirming a terrible match. A family friend recognized a specific gap in the front teeth. A dentist matched the boy's dental records exactly. Years later, a DNA test would confirm it beyond any doubt. It was Adam. Doctors determined the cause of death was suffocation. There was also serious injury to the face. The more severe injury to the neck happened after he had already died. He had likely died within a day or 2 of being taken. He had not been kept alive. There were no drugs found in his body. One doctor said something that still echoes today. If those 2 fishermen hadn't come along, no one would have ever known. The Walsh family held a funeral with an empty casket. The remains were still needed as evidence. They couldn't even bury their son whole. During one of the darkest nights of his life, a doctor said something to John. "You can't have your son's remains yet," he said, "but you can make sure he didn't die for nothing." The investigation that followed became one of the messiest in history. Statistically, when a child disappears, someone close to the family is often involved. So police started there. John and Reve both agreed to take lie detector tests. Both of them passed. Attention then turned to a man who had once lived with the family. He had moved out just 2 weeks before Adam disappeared. His alibi for that morning held up under questioning. But investigators discovered something else. A years-long affair between this man and Reve. Police became fixated on this as a possible motive. They questioned him for months. One officer later admitted they came close to crossing a line. Eventually, with a lawyer's help, the man was fully cleared. Meanwhile, the truth about the security guard finally came out. She had sent 4 boys outside. She hadn't realized one of them might be Adam. When the Walshes learned the full story years later, they sued the store. They argued the store had created a dangerous setup for kids. They said an untrained guard sent their son into an unfamiliar parking lot alone. The store fought back hard. They threatened to expose painful personal details in open court. With a live police investigation still happening, the Walshes made a hard choice. They dropped the lawsuit. They didn't want to risk leaking files that could hurt a future case. Over the years, the list of suspects grew long and strange. One man already in jail for a similar crime became a suspect. A cellmate claimed he had confessed, but the evidence against him fell apart, and he was cleared. Another violent offender was named by a different informant. He gave his DNA willingly. He was ruled out years later. He admitted he only claimed it to look tough behind bars. Then came a name that shocked the entire country. Jeffrey Dahmer. When his crimes became public in 1991, witnesses started coming forward. Some claimed they had seen him near the store that very day. Investigators looked into his timeline carefully. He had been working at a sandwich shop nearby. That shop owned a van matching some witness descriptions, but the owner said Dahmer rarely drove it. Dahmer denied any involvement. He said he would welcome execution if he had actually done it. He had confessed to every other murder in horrifying detail. Why would he lie about just this one? But he had also lied to people for years when it suited him. The full truth went with him when he was killed in prison. In October 1983, a TV movie about Adam's story aired nationwide. Almost 40 million people watched. At the end, a hotline number flashed on screen. The very next day, a man already locked up began hinting at something. His name was Otis Toole. Toole and his criminal partner were known for false confessions. They traded confessions for better treatment and trips outside their cells. Toole's first story was full of mistakes. Wrong age, wrong clothes. He even blamed a partner who was proven to be in jail elsewhere that day. When confronted, he simply changed his story. He said he had acted alone. Over the years, he confessed and took it back, again and again. But one version included a chilling detail. It matched the medical report almost exactly. Investigators found a car Toole said he had used. Testing found blood inside, but the technology back then couldn't confirm if it was human or animal. The evidence was sealed and left waiting for police to collect. They never picked it up. The car was eventually sold for scrap. The blood, the carpet, all of it, gone forever. Years later, an FBI agent wanted to run modern DNA tests on that evidence. By then, it no longer existed. Toole died in prison in 1996. Before he died, he reportedly told a relative plainly. He said he had killed the boy. He said he always felt bad about it. In 2008, a retired detective reviewed the entire case file. He concluded that Toole was responsible. On December 16, 2008, police held a press conference. They formally closed the case. They named Otis Toole as the killer, and they apologized publicly for every mistake made along the way. Adam Walsh's case never ended with a clean courtroom verdict. The man believed responsible died before facing any trial. But his death did not end in silence. It ended in a system rebuilt from the ground up. His parents turned unbearable grief into action. They founded an organization to help find missing children. To this day, that group has helped recover hundreds of thousands of kids. In 1982, a new law created the first national database for missing children. In 2006, another law strengthened protections for children across the entire country. John Walsh went on to host a national crime show for over 2 decades. It helped capture more than 1,100 wanted criminals. And today, stores across the country use something called Code Adam. If a child goes missing inside a store, every exit is locked. Workers search until that child is found. Here is the lesson in all of this, something every parent and every shopper can use. In a crowded public place, never let a child out of your sight, not even for a few minutes, not even somewhere that feels completely safe. And if you ever see a child alone and upset, say something right away. Don't assume someone else will. A few seconds of attention can change everything. Type Adam in the comment section. That way, the world will know that Adam's name is not forgotten, even though his life was cut short. Also subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. See you then.